Hello, this is SAT practice test number 8, section 4, which is the calculator allowed section. This is the actual SAT given in January of 2017. Before we get going, I had to record this in a couple different sessions, unfortunately, so I changed shirts and backgrounds a couple times. Hope it doesn't throw anyone for a loop. Let's get going into the first problem. Problem 1. 1 pound of grape costs $2. At this rate, how many dollars will C pounds of grapes cost? So number 1, it might be easy for you to just circle the right answer right off the bat. If this one's throwing you for a loop, there's another way of thinking about it. What they're asking for is how many dollars will C pounds of grapes cost. So the unit they're looking for in the answer is dollars, right? So you can write that down as dollars will be the answer is equal to the information they give you in the problem is 1 pound of grapes costs $2. So they're giving you basically dollars per unit, dollars per pound. So that's the other information you have, dollars per pound. So how do you manipulate this information that they give you to get it to look like the answer units that you need to have? Well, the only thing you can do is multiply by pounds to cross out this pounds in the denominator with the pounds you're multiplying by. So what does that all look like in the end? This dollars, which is your answer, right? You're looking for dollars, is equal to that $2 per pound, right? That's the information given in the problems, times the number of pounds, which is C pounds of grapes, C. And that answer there is answer choice A. Problem number 2. Tracy collects, sells, and trades figurines, and she tracks the number of figurines in her collection on the graph below. On what interval did the number of figurines decrease the fastest? Okay, so always reread what are they asking for in the problem. Like what comes right before the question mark. On what interval did the number of figurines decrease the fastest? And what they're trying to trip you up on is number 2. The only thing they can do is tricky things, right? They're trying to trip you up on the did you read the word decrease? Because when they say increase or decrease, they're talking about the slope, right? But when they're talking decrease, they're only talking about the slopes, the negative slopes here. So they're talking about which is the larger slope, this one or this one. And when I say they're trying to trip you up with words, if you just read it quick and say, what did it change the fastest or what did it increase the fastest, then you'd errantly get the answer here, because that is the largest slope, but it's the positive slope. You can only use the negative slopes because they say decrease the fastest. And so this slope is clearly steeper than this slope. So the months of greatest decrease were between months 3 and 4. So C is the correct answer. Problem number 3. In a random sample of 200 cars of a particular model, 3 have a manufacturing defect. At this rate, how many of 10,000 cars of the same model will have a manufacturing defect? And the key to this problem are these 3 words here, at this rate. So that's telling you that you can calculate something before you get to the question mark sentence, right? You can calculate the rate of defect from the numbers given before. So what is that rate? So the rate of defect is equal to number of cars with a defect divided by total cars in the sample. So our first, the first sentence, we're given both the number of cars with a defect and the total size of the sample. So we can use that to calculate 3 over 200 is our rate. And this is a calculator section. You can punch that in, get 0.015, and that's 1.5%, but you can leave it as 0.015. So now, in the actual question, what are they asking? The question mark section of the question. How many of 10,000 cars of the same model will have the manufacturing defect? So using this same equation, what we don't know now is the numerator. We don't know this X, total cars with number of cars with a defect. We do know the total cars in the sample, 10,000. And we know this rate, 0.015. So what we're looking for in the end is X, multiply by 10,000, so 0.015 times 10,000. Plug into your calculator if you'd like, but it's 150 is equal to that X. 150 is your answer, and it is answer A. The scatter plot above shows data collected on lengths and widths of, I guarantee this name doesn't matter, petals. A line of best fit for the data is also shown. Based on the line of best fit, if the width of petals is 19 millimeters, what is the predicted length in millimeters of the pedal. And so you take a look at the plot, and they say based on the line of best fit, and this is a calculator section, and they give you the equation of the line of best fit. They're saying they give you the width, which is your x, and they're asking for the length, which is your y. So they're saying you can plug into x, and we're asking for y. So it's literally plug 19 into this equation, and what's the answer? And you'll find it's 52.83. If you're having terrible luck and your calculator broke or something, you can also say the width is 19 millimeters. So saying x is 19, so it's like 16, 17, 18, 19 about here. Continue this line up. You're looking about like that. Even with my terrible drawing, you can see that it's clearly above 50, but below 55. The only answer that's above 50 and below 55 is 52. Answer choice C. Problem 5. In the figure above, lines L and M are parallel. Y is equal to 20 degrees. Z is equal to 60 degrees. What is the value of X? So they're relying on you to know some geometric rules here. And that is, if these two lines are parallel and a line intersects them, the angles inside must be equal. So for instance, this angle here must be equal to this angle here, and it doesn't actually matter for this problem, but this angle here is also equal to this angle here. But the key thing is, since this angle is equal to this angle is equal to this angle, then this is equal to 20. You know that all triangles must equal the three angles of all triangles must equal 180. So 180 is equal to 60 plus 20 plus x degrees. So 180 is equal to 80 plus x. Subtract 80 from both sides, and 100 is equal to x degrees. So your answer is x is equal to 100. What is the value of x is what they're looking for. B is the correct answer. Just to pull this back to terms you might have heard in geometry, these lines, any line that intersects a parallel line is called an intersecting transversal. And the angles that are the same in here are called corresponding angles. Again, knowing the terms doesn't really matter, but just if it helps you to think back to things you may have heard in geometry, those are the terms. Okay, moving on. Problem 6. 2 types of tickets were sold for a concert held in an amphitheater. Tickets to sit on the bench during concert were $75 each, and tickets to sit on the lawn of the concert cost $40 each. Organizers of the concert announced 350 tickets had been sold, and that $19,250 had been raised through ticket sales alone. Which of the following systems of equations could be used to find number of tickets for the bench seats B and the number of tickets for lawn seats L that were sold for a concert? All right, it's a very long-winded problem, and I'm kind of surprised they don't make you solve it, but all you have to do is correctly identify the system of equations. So what do they give you right before the question mark again? So number of lawn seats L and number of bench seats B. Those are the total seats told. The sum of the two of them is equal to 350. So number of bench seats plus number of lawn seats is equal to total number of seats, which they give you in the problem is 350. So there's one of the equations for the system of equations. And in problems like this, cross off any equations any of your solutions that don't make sense. So C has this B plus L is equal to 19,250. That would be if you screwed up the dollars and the seats. C is incorrect. So you're still left with the other three have this B plus L is equal to 350. So the other piece of information you know is that they raised $19,250. So they did that by each bench seat costing $75. So the amount they raised from bench seats was, sort of going back to problem 1 with the grapes, was $75 times the number of bench seats sold. So 75 would be dollars per bench seat times number of bench seats, plus $40, right, dollars per lawn seat times lawn seat is equal to the total they raised, $19,250. So which has this? C or D has it correct here. So D has 75B plus 40L is equal to 19,250. In B, they swapped, they multiplied the 40 times B, 75 times L. That would just be if you made a carrying over mistake. B is incorrect, And in A, they're multiplying and they have the right side wrong. A is a total mess. It is incorrect. D is the correct answer. Problem 7, in the xy plane, the graph of which of the following equations is a line with a slope of 3? So this is testing the equation that you must have memorized coming to the SAT. If you memorize nothing else, memorize this one. The equation of a line in y equals mx plus b form. Y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope, b is the intercept. So they're asking for a slope of 3, so m is equal to 3. So you see in this form is what comes right before the x. The only equation where there's a 3 right in front of the x is this one. So C is the correct answer. These other ones, the slope will be 1/3 or 1 or 6. None of those are correct. C is the correct answer. Problem number 8. In the equation above, which of the following is a possible value of x plus 1? Taking a look at the equation that they give you, x plus 1 appears in 2 places, right here and right here. And since x plus 1 appears together everywhere, it's not like there's a stray x somewhere, you can go ahead and call this x plus 1 another variable, right? You can call this x plus 1, make it equal to, call it y. So right here, cross this out, call it y, cross this out, call it y. You have an equivalent problem right here. They never had to call it x plus 1. If they said in the equation above which the following is the possible value of y, and gave you this equation as I defined it, you'd have the exact same problem. So now you're left with y is equal to 2 divided by y. Without that x plus 1, it makes it look a lot simpler, and it is. So you can multiply both sides by y to give yourself y squared is equal to 2, right? Y times y is y squared. So y is equal to the square root of 2. So remember, y is what we were calling x plus 1. So what is the possible value of that x plus 1, or what we called y? And it is what we just calculated, b, square root of 2. Questions 9 through 11 refer to the following information here. The glass pictures above can hold a maximum volume of 473 cubic centimeters, which is approximately 16 fluid ounces. So in problem 9, what is the value of K in centimeters? So you're given K in this equation here, and the volume is cubic centimeters here. So forget this fluid ounces. That would be a units nightmare. Use this 473 cubic centimeters. And take this equation here, so you know that volume is equal to 7 pi k to the third divided by 48. So solve for k. What they're asking for is k. So take v, multiply by 48. 48v is equal to 7 pi k to the third. Divide by 7 pi. You have 48v divided by 7 pi. Get it off of this side. Is equal to k to the third. Take the cube root of the left side, so that'll look like k is equal to, just swapping sides here, cube root of 48v divided by 7 pi. This is the calculator section, thankfully, so you can plug that all right into your calculator. If you don't have a cube root button on your calculator or any way to enter a higher order root, know that a cube root is to the power of 1/3. So when you plug all that into your calculator, hit enter, you'll get 10.1069. Rounding that off because there's only 2 decimal places in these answers I see. Rounding to 2 decimal places, that'll be 10.11. which is answer D. Question 10. Water pours into the glass slowly and at a constant rate. Which of the following graphs best illustrates the height of the water level in the glass as it fills? So you notice in all your answer choices, there's no units here, which I think makes it a pretty bad SAT math problem. There's no math here. It's just sort of a visualization thing. So you won't need any of the, because there's no numbers, you won't need any of the units here. It's just a visualization. So if you're having trouble with this one, picture that this glass has marks on it, even marks at even heights, all the way up the glass. And you're filling it at a constant rate, right? So the volume's going up at a constant rate. To get to that first mark, because you only have to fill a relatively small volume down here, you get to that first mark quickly. And then to get to the second mark, it takes you a little bit longer than the time it took you to get to the first mark. And so on. It takes a little bit longer each time to get to the next mark. So what does that look like graphically? Well, in this one, marks of water level height, so you can just translate those marks right onto your y-axis here. It takes the same amount of time, right, to get from one mark to the other. It takes the same amount of time here to get from one mark to the other. So A is incorrect. It does not take the same amount of time. Let's look at B. At this one, you have, again, your height of the marks. At this one, it takes quite a long time to get to the first mark, then a little bit shorter time to get to the second mark, shorter time to get to the third mark, and then as you keep going, you see that this time here gets shorter and shorter and shorter as you go on, which is the opposite of what we see. That would be if this were the other way, which is incorrect. So B is incorrect. We're not getting shorter in time. We're not getting faster fill as we go. So we move on to C, where we have the height of the water. It takes very little time to get to this first mark, second mark, third mark, fourth mark, fifth mark, so on. It takes very little time to get to this first one, a little bit more time to get to the second one, more time to get to this mark, more time to get to this mark. And you see that your time is increasing with each mark, which is what you actually see when you fill this glass. So C is correct. Just for completeness, let's look at D. This would be if you instantaneously filled the glass, I guess, and the height didn't change, which is not what the problem's saying at all. D is incorrect. C is your correct answer. Problem 11, Jenny has a pitcher that contains 1 gallon of water. How many times could Jenny completely fill the glass with 1 gallon of water? And they conveniently give you 1 gallon is equal to 128 fluid ounces. So where do they give you information about fluid ounces in the problem? In this paragraph, they say that this volume here of the glass is 16 fluid ounces. Okay, so they're asking for number of times you could fill, and that is equal to the amount you have to use, so amount to use, divided by the amount you have to fill. So amount to fill. The amount to use is given in the problem as 128 fluid ounces, divided by the amount to fill is given in the information, the common information over to the left is 16 fluid ounces. So these are both fluid ounces, so the units will cancel, which is good because number of times filled is unitless, it's just a number. So 128 divided by 16, it's the calculator section, that will be 8. So number of times filled will be 8, answer choice B. Problem 12. Roberto is an insurance agent who sells 2 types of policies, a $50,000 policy and a $100,000 policy. Last month, his goal was to sell at least 57 insurance policies. While he did not meet his goal, the total value of the policies he sold was over $3 million, which the following system of inequalities describes X, the possible number of $50,000 policies, and Y, the possible number of $100,000 policies that Roberto sold last month. Okay, so this is really similar to problem 6, where basically you're given a lot of text and given the opportunity to create a system of equations. So let's start off with his goal was to sell at least 57 insurance policies. He did not meet his goal, which means he sold less than, so number sold was less than 57, right? And number sold is equal to number of policies X plus number of policies Y. So I'll put that all together. You have X plus Y must be less than 57. So we can look, A does have that as one of its equations. B is the reverse, greater than 57, that's incorrect. C is less than 57. D is the reverse, so that's incorrect. Now, looking at the other information they give, you know that the dollar amount sold was greater than, the value of the policy sold was over $3 million, was greater than $3 million. So what is this dollar sold? It's the dollar sold of X plus the dollar sold of Y. And the dollar sold of X, so 2 types of policies, a $50,000 policy. X is the $50,000 policy. So you have 50,000 times X plus Y is the $100,000 policy. 100,000 times Y. Put that all together is greater than 3 million. A is the reverse, that's saying it's less than 3 million, so you're left with C, which shows greater than 3 million, so C is the correct answer. Problem 13, if a to the power of negative 1/2 is equal to x, where a is greater than 0, what is a in terms of x? Remember, a problem asks what is something in terms of something else. They're asking for that first thing to be solved, to be isolated, basically. So put a on one side of the equation by itself. So go ahead and rewrite this equation here. So you have a to the power of negative 1/2 is equal to x. And you need to work with the exponent. So what is x's exponent here? Anything to the power of 1 is itself. So really you have x to the power of 1 here. You can write anything that's by itself to the power of 1, and it's the same thing. So how do you work with these exponents? We have negative 1/2. What would you have to multiply 1/2 by to make it 1? It would be 2, right? So multiply a's exponent here by negative 2. So it was negative 1/2. Multiply that by negative 2. So you have to do the same thing to both sides. So take that x and multiply by negative 2 in the exponent. So now you have a is now to the power of 1, so it is itself. X is to the power of negative 2. So that is, right, anything to the power of 1 is itself. We said that earlier. You got x to the negative 2. That's your answer right there. When you take a look down your list of answers, you don't see that right off the bat. So what they're looking for you to recognize here is that a negative exponent means it's equal to the reciprocal. So this is equal to 1 over x squared. Whenever there's a negative exponent, you can go ahead and put 1 in the numerator and put everything else in the denominator. It's a reciprocal. So that is the correct answer here. So answer is C. Problem 14, which of the following is the value of x for which the expression negative 3 over x squared plus 3x minus 10 is undefined? So you see undefined in an SAT problem, it basically has to mean denominator is equal to 0. That's pretty much the only way you can get an undefined function on the SAT. So this problem really simplifies to this expression here, x squared plus 3x minus 10 is equal to 0. And so what is x that makes that true? So you have this, you can bet you're going to have to factor it because there's no way to find the x straight from this equation here. So you'll have a factor. There are other videos that do factoring really well, so I'm not going to go into details here. But basically, you need to find two things that multiply together to get 10. In this case, 2 and 5. When you subtract 2 from 5, you get this 3. So you have a positive and a negative. It will be 5 and 2. So you have to put 5 over here and 2 over here. And so that's what this factors to. So you can break this down to x plus 5 is equal to 0, or x minus 2 is equal to 0. So that means that either x must be equal to negative 5 or x must be equal to 2. So you take a look, x minus 5 doesn't appear in your answer list. So x is equal to 2 does appear. So D is your correct answer. If anyone needs to see that factoring worked out a little more detailed, let me know, and I can make a separate video to do that in more detail. Problem 15. A granite block in the shape of a right rectangular prism has dimensions 30 centimeters by 40 centimeters by 50 centimeters. The block has a density of 2.8 grams per cubic centimeter. What is the mass of the block in grams? And they helpfully say density is mass per unit volume. So they're looking for mass, and they tell you density is equal to mass per unit volume. So write that out. We'll just call it density D. You might be used to seeing it as rho if you've taken physics, but we'll just call it D here. Density is equal to mass divided by volume. Okay, so they give you, and you're eventually looking for mass. So let's go ahead and rearrange this equation right now. So just multiply both sides by V, which will give you M is equal to D times V. Okay, so now substitute in for that D and V. So D, the block has a density of 2.8 grams per cubic centimeter, so you know that that's 2.8 grams per cubic centimeter. And then V, they give you the dimensions of this, and they say it's a rectangular prism. So here's where you could probably get tripped up on this problem. Rectangular prism means a block, basically. You could see prism and think they might be talking about down here because, you know, you generally associate the word prism with a more complicated shape, but in this case, rectangular is what you need to focus in on. This is the correct geometry to use. These are all available on the first page of your SAT, by the way. So you don't have to memorize these equations. They're available on the first page. So now calculate this volume is equal to length times width times height. So that's 30 centimeters times 40 centimeters times 50 centimeters. You're in the calculator section, so just throw that in your calculator. You'll get volume is equal to 60,000 centimeters cubed. So you can plug that in for V in our equation here, and that will give you 60,000 centimeters cubed. The units of centimeters cubed will cancel out. That means your final answer will be in grams. Take a moment to check that's what they're looking for. What is the mass of the block in grams? So you're good to go. Plug this in your calculator, multiply 60,000 by 2.8, and you will come up with 168,000. Again, units are just grams. So you're good to go there, and that is answer D. Problem 16, the table shows the results of a research study that investigated the therapeutic value of vitamin C in preventing colds. A random sample of 300 adults received either a vitamin C pill or sugar pill each day during a 2-week period. The adults reported whether they contracted a cold during that time period. What proportion of adults who received a sugar pill reported contracting a cold? Okay, so it's really important here. Read what comes right before the question mark. So what proportion of adults who received a sugar pill? So that means that they're only focusing in on this question on this row here, because they're saying you're only interested in the adults who received a sugar pill reported contracting a cold. So they're only interested in this column here. So what's the total number of adults who received a sugar pill? 150. So that's 150 received a sugar pill, and of that, how many reported contracting a cold? 33. So 33 of 150, that doesn't exist in your table here. The key thing to recognize is both of these can be divided, both the numerator and denominator can be divided by 3. So 33 divided by 3 and 150 divided by 3 will give you 11 over 50, and that will be answer choice B. If you don't recognize right away that both numerator and denominator can be divided by 3, you can just plug 33 over 150 in your calculator and get whatever that is in decimal, and then do the same for each of these answers, and then answer choice B, the decimal will match, and that's how you know it's the correct answer. Okay, moving on. Problem 17. The table above shows the distribution of ages of 20 students enrolled in a college class. Which of the following gives the correct order of mean, median, and mode of the ages? So mean, median, and mode almost certain to come up in one problem of your SAT, so memorize those definitions. So the 3 we need here, just to describe them briefly, mean is the average, median is the number that occurs right in the middle of the data set, so like the geometric middle, and then mode is the number that occurs most frequently. So this table, 20 students enrolled in a college class, gives you age in one column, frequency in the other. So because they give you frequency as a column, it's pretty easy to pick out which age is the most frequent, right? Which occurs the most. So age 18 occurs 6 times. That's the most of any age. So mode is the easiest one to pick out. It is 18. Median is also fairly easy to pick out here. So you have 20 students enrolled, so the median will be the age that occurs right between the 10th and 11th students. So, 6 students are age 18, then 5 are age 19. So the 11th student is age 19, the 10th student is age 19. So the median is 19. The mean's a little bit tougher, or a little bit more time consuming, I guess, to calculate. So it's the calculator section, you can plug this in and calculate it. It would be mean is equal to, in the numerator, you'd have 18 times 6, right? So this times this, plus 19 times 5, plus 19 times 5, plus 20 times 4, etc. And then in the denominator, you just have 20. And that would give you the mean. It's certainly valid to plug all that into your calculator, or you can just look at this table. So you have a distribution that you have a lot of students lower age, but you also have an outlier here. You have an outlier you have 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. Then you have an outlier at 30. That is going to pull the average up quite substantially. Even that one person, because they're the higher age, is going to pull the average up substantially. So it's easy to see that the mean is going to be higher than the median. So you just know that it's going to be greater than 19. And because of the way the answers are formatted, that's all the information you need. You know that the mean is going to be the highest here. So look through quickly and see that anyone that says the mean is not the highest is going to be wrong. And we know that median is greater than mode, and that occurs only in answer A. So answer A is the correct answer here. Problem 18, the figure below shows the relationship between the percent of leaf litter mass remaining after decomposing for 3 years and the mean annual temperature in degrees Celsius in 18 forests in Canada. A line of best fit is also shown. For a particular forest in Canada whose data is not included in the figure, had a mean annual temperature of -2 degrees Celsius. Based on the line of best fit, which the following is closest to the predicted percent of leaf litter mass remaining in this particular forest after decomposing for 3 years. Okay, so they really only give you one number here, -2 degrees Celsius, and that's what's on the x-axis. So find that number on the x-axis is the first place to start. So here you have 0, -5, so this is -2.5. So probably the hardest part of this is just you have to kind of take a swag at where 2 is on here, because this is -2.5. So we'll call -2 about here. So bring this up. Now, why this first sentence here is important, because they say the data is not included in the figure based on the line of best fit. So draw this to the line of best fit. Don't think that, oh, maybe this is the data point that I'm supposed to use. Nope. Go to the line of best fit and go over to your y-axis. So they're asking percent of leaf litter mass remaining. Leaf litter mass remaining. That's a bit of a tongue twister. And that is what's on the y-axis. So that's what they're asking for. When you draw this over, it is 70%, and that's available as answer C. C is the correct answer. Problem 23. The range of the polynomial function f is a set of real numbers less than or equal to 4. If the zeros of f are -3 and 1, which the following could be the graph of y is equal to f of x in the xy plane. Okay, so they give you a few different pieces of information here. They give you information about the range of the function and information about the zeros of the function. And as a rule, zeros are always going to be the easiest to work with, because all zeros mean is where does this graph cross the x-axis. So when they say zeros, they're saying this crosses the x-axis at -3 and 1. So look at which of these does that. So A crosses at -3 and 1, so A is still in contention. C also crosses at -3 and 1. B does not. It crosses at 1 or -1 and +3. So B is out of contention, and D actually crosses the x-axis 3 times. It does cross at -3 and 1, but it also crosses at 0. So D is also out of contention. Now go to the other piece of information they give you. The range of the polynomial function is the set of real numbers less than or equal to 4. So what does that mean? It means that the answers must be less than 4. So they're saying this is 4 on the y-axis. So here's 4 here, here's 4 here, and that is the range. So what does that mean? Under this parabola, and remember this extends, on off the page. This also extends. So here, every answer under this shaded area is less than or equal to 4, whereas in this case, this area would all be less than or equal to 4, but up here is possible answers that are greater than 4. So that means that C is incorrect. A is the correct answer. The graph of this function matches the description they give in the problem. Problem 20. The average annual energy cost for a certain home is $4,334. The homeowner plans to spend $25,000 to install a geothermal heating system. The homeowner estimates that the average annual energy cost will be $2,712. Which of the following inequalities can be solved to find T, the number of years after the installation at which the total amount of energy cost savings will exceed the installation cost? Okay, and a good way to start here is to think about your units. So in these, you can see that in one case, they're multiplying some of these numbers by T. In some case, there's other things happening. take a look at what they're saying with all of these units. So in this one, you have 25,000. That's the dollars, right? That's the amount the homeowner plans to spend. So this is dollars greater than 4334. That's annual energy cost. So that is dollars per year minus 2,712. What is that? The homeowner estimates energy cost. So this is also dollars per year times T, which is years. So in this case, the units of years would cancel, and you'll have dollars greater than or equal to dollars. So A is still in contention. The units check out. And it's easy to see that B will also be in contention. It's the same analysis we just did, just with this sign flipped, or the greater than equal to flipped. So B is also in contention. Now let's take a look at C. You have the 25,000, that's dollars, minus dollars per year. It's already looking not correct. So here you have this 2712, that is dollars per year times years. So that would cancel and that would be dollars, but on the left-hand side, you'd have dollars minus dollars per year. That doesn't make any sense at all. C is out of contention. And then with D, you'd have dollars, again, this 25,000, dollars greater than dollars per year over dollars per year times years. In this case, this dollars per year would cancel out, and you just be comparing dollars to years, which doesn't make any sense at all. So D is out of contention. Now, which between A and B is correct? As we said earlier, this is the same expression with the greater than sign flipped. So which is correct? They're saying, what are they asking for in the problem? That's what you always go back to. The number of years after installation at which the total amount of energy cost savings will exceed the installation cost. So the installation cost is what's on the left here, right? So when is what's on the right exceeding? So when is what's on the right greater than? So when is what's on the right greater than the installation cost? So that's expressed in B. So at what point is the right greater than the left? B. Okay, questions 21 and 22 refer to the following information. Between 1985 and 2003, data were collected every 3 years on the amount of plastic produced annually in the United States in billions of pounds. The graph below shows the data and line of best fit. The equation of the line of best fit is given here, where X is the number of years since 1985 and Y is the amount of plastic produced annually in billions of pounds. Okay, so before we're trying to digest all that information, go right to the problem, see what they're asking, see what part of everything they give here you actually have to understand right now. So which of the following is the best interpretation of the number 3.39 in the context of the problem? Okay, so go back, pull out 3.39. It occurs right here. This is the slope of this line that they're giving. This is the equation of the line, and 3.39 is the slope. So when you start reading through your answers, remember, you're going to be looking for something that signifies slope. So change or increase or decrease or difference, something that signifies slope. So let's read through these quickly. The amount of plastic in billions of pounds produced in the United States during the year 1985. This is incorrect. It doesn't mention change or increase. That's not right. B, the number of years it took the United States to produce 1 billion pounds of plastic. Again, not talking about change. C, the average annual plastic production in billions of pounds in the United States. Nope, that's just straight off the y-axis, not talking about change. Hopefully D is correct. The average annual increase. Aha, so there you go. Now they're talking about something that could be slope. In billions of pounds of plastic produced per year in the United States from 1985 to 2003. So yes, they're talking about the change from 1985, taking the slope of this whole line, it would be rise over run. The change in billions of pounds, they're talking about in billions of pounds, so they're not trying to do anything tricky D here, and they're talking about increase. So D is correct. That's the description of 3.39, which is the slope of this line. Problem 23. The equation above models the number of members M of a gym T years after the gym opens. Of the following, which equation models the number of members of the gym Q quarter years after the gym opens? So basically they're asking you for this expression, which has this variable T in years, to rewrite the years as quarters. So how do you do so? Well, a quarter is, there's 4 quarters in a year, right? So you have T is equal to, you know you're going to have to replace that T. So you have the number of quarters in a year. So the number of years is the number of quarters divided by 4. And why is that true? Well, think about if you're in quarter 1. So let's replace Q with 1 here, just as a thought exercise. So you'd have T in years is equal to 1 divided by 4. You're in quarter 1. So you'd be 0.25 through the year, right? So like 25% of the way through the year. Or if you replace this with T is equal to 2 divided by 4, you're in quarter 2, you'd be 50% of the way through the year, right? And that one's easy to see. Of course, if you're in quarter 2, you're halfway through the year. So that's why this expression here is true. Now go ahead, and you don't even have to rewrite it. Just think about it in your head. Think of this equation with T replaced with Q divided by 4, and it's easy to see that the only one that meets that is answer choice A. I guess B would be easy to trip you up if you're just going too fast and you thought, oh, 4 quarters in a year, multiply by 4, and that would mess you up, but B is incorrect. These other ones start to mess with the equation itself and not just that exponent. Those are also incorrect. A is your correct answer here. Problem 24. For the finale of a TV show, viewers could use either social media or text message to vote for their favorite 2 contestants. The contestants receiving more than 50% of the vote won. An estimated 10% of viewers voted and 30% of votes were cast on social media. Contestant 2 earned 70% of the votes cast using social media and 40% of the votes cast using a text message. Based on this information, which of the following is an accurate conclusion? So, I usually always say read what's before the question mark. In this case, it's pretty easy. Which of the following is true? 3 will be false or indeterminate. You can't say whether it's true or false, but 1 will be definitely true. So in this case, because you're going to have to read different statements and assess their truth or false, read the possible answers before you go back and try to understand this wall of text. It's important to understand what it is you're trying to draw out of the rest of the text by reading all the answers first. So even if you only had a vague idea of what they had said in the previous text, read your answers first. Okay. On to A, if all viewers had voted, contestant 2 would have won. So somewhere in there they said less than 100% voted, but the point is you can't make a statement about what viewers who didn't vote would have voted for. So you can't say whether A is true or false. So you can't definitively say it's true. So it's eliminated from contention here. Viewers voting by social media were likely to be younger than viewers voting by text message. I mean, I only read through that once quickly, but it didn't say anything about ages. It just had percentages by social media and text message. So you can't say that B is true or false. Eliminated. C, if all viewers who voted had voted by social media instead of by text message, contestant 2 would have won. This doesn't really make any sense because votes count as votes one way or the other. Now, one media did prefer one contestant based on, again, just kind of a quick read through. But again, if they had switched, that doesn't mean that they would have switched their votes. You can't say that C is true or false. Just because they voted on one platform does not mean they would have voted the same on a different platform. C is incorrect. So D, hopefully it's true. Viewers voting by social media were more likely to prefer contestant 2 than were viewers voting by text message. So reading back through here, when they get to, you see here they start talking about contestant 2's vote specifically, earned 70% of the votes cast using social media and 40% of the votes cast using text message. So she was more popular, he or she was more popular on social media than by text message, and she captured the majority of social media votes. So D is true. Okay, on to the next one. Problem 25. The table above shows the population of Greenleaf, Idaho for the years 2000 and 2010. The relationship between population and year is linear, which the following functions P models the population of Greenleaf T years after 2000. Okay, so reading just that question mark sentence, if the relationship between population and year is linear, so that's a tip-off that your equation will take the form of a line, so that's y is equal to mx plus b the equation you must have memorized going into the SAT, where m is slope and b is intercept. Which of the following functions P models the population of greenleaf T years after 2000? And sometimes this will come up, it has a fair chance of coming up on your SAT, where when the x-axis is in years, it can be a little tricky defining what is x. So I'd recommend, give yourself an xy here, just so you can see what's going on. So on the x-axis, this is T years after 2000. Or, so let's say 0 years after 2000. So that is the year 2000, and this would be 10. So when x is equal to 10, it's the year 2010. And then on the y, you just have population. So remember, z is the year 2000. So at 0, we have this 862. And then where we have x is 10 is the year 2010. So that would be population 846. Say right there. And then they give you that this is linear. So it looks something like that. So population decreasing, linear, 0 is 862, 10 is 846. Okay, so how do we figure out the equation of this line? So first, work with a slope. So m is equal to rise over run. Right, change in y over change in x. So here we have 862 minus 8. Actually, sorry, I got that backwards. 846 minus 862 divided by 2010 minus 2000. So remember, it's the ending y minus the beginning y. Ending x minus the beginning x. Calculator section, plug that into your calculator. You come up with negative 1.6. Okay, at this point you know m, so let's go ahead and start looking at our answer choices. So you have to have 1.6 right before t, which is acting as x here. So here you have your negative 1.6 in the m slot, so a is still in contention. B, you have 16. That would be if you screwed up your M calculation, so B is incorrect. C, you also have this 16 here. And D, you have this negative 1.6. But let's look at the difference between A and D, because there are only contenders left. So here you have 862, which is acting as the intercept, minus 1.6t. So this looks a little different than y equals mx plus b form. But remember, this could be rewritten as negative 1.6t plus 862 to put it in pure mx plus b form. And similarly, this could be rewritten as negative 1.6 t minus 2000 plus 862. You wouldn't have to rewrite those on your test if you can just kind of see that, but I didn't want it to throw anyone off saying, oh, why is it not y equals mx plus b? You can just rearrange it yourself. But the difference here is that this has just t, and this has this t minus 2000. And remember, in the problem, they said that population P, t years after 2000. So that's basically already built in. Going back to our graph started at 0 and it had 10. So you don't need to do this minus 2000 within what you're multiplying your slope by, because remember, our plot had 0 and 10 on it. It didn't have 2000 and 2010. So you don't need this minus 2000 modifier. So D is incorrect, and A is your correct answer to describe this plot here. Problem 26. To determine the mean number of children per household in the community, Tabitha surveyed 20 families at a playground. For the 20 families surveyed, the mean number of children per household was 2.4. Which of the following statements must be true? It's very similar to the previous problem where you have to read the statements is your next step to assess them one by one. There's really no way around that. So let's dive right in. A, the mean number of children per household in the community is 2.4. And they put this one first just to make you maybe not read further, because that's right from the problem. The mean number of children per household is 2.4. So that's tentatively true, but go ahead and look at the rest, because that's the best you could tell. That's a contender to be the most true. So B, a determination about the mean number of children per household and community size should not be made because the sample size is too small. Okay, so now they're getting into, was the methodology of the sampling correct? And at this point, they said 20 families at a playground. That doesn't say anything about the number of families in the community. Maybe the community is 20 families. You know, it's small, you know, rural, around one. We don't know. So you can't say whether that's a good representation or not. Or, you know, if it's in the middle of a big city, then that's not a good representation. We don't know because we don't know the population around the whole area. So C, the sampling method is flawed and may produce a biased estimate of the mean number of children per household in the community. So another one about the methodology. And so she's sampling at a playground. So, you know, even just intuitively, you can say, okay, it's at a playground. The people at a playground are likely to have more kids because they need to get out of the house because of all the screaming and such. So, yes, this is true. The sampling method was flawed. You know, it wasn't like a blind survey where I don't even know how you do that. The U.S. Census maybe would be the best way, or a national census would be the best way to get that number, you know, but just asking people who are at a playground how many kids they have is not a good methodology. So C is true. D is just the reverse, saying it's not flawed, but we just said it is flawed, says incorrect. A would have been correct if it would be been like the most true, like the best you can tell based on this data would be that it's 2.4, but it's more true that it was a flawed sample. So I do want to say one more time, the most common way you're going to see this on the test, you'll see this a lot like based on internet survey or something. Like an internet survey is always flawed just because like there's response bias, you know, people who are actually checking their email or people who are actually motivated to respond. So you might see something about an internet survey. If that's the case and they give you something like that on the SAT, look for, oh yeah, this method is flawed in your possible answers. Problem 27. In the xy plane, the point P, R lies on the line with the equation y is equal to x plus b, where b is a constant. The point with coordinates 2p, 5r lies on the line with the equation y is equal to 2x plus b. If p does not equal to 0, what is the value of r divided by p? Now they're asking for this value of r, which appears in y in both cases, and p, which appears as x in both cases. So you have two different equations. So you know you're going to be working with a system of equations, and you're going to be substituting in this x and this y, these x and these y's. So the one variable here that's a constant, I guess it's a constant, not a variable, but you'll be working with is b here. Both have b, which is a constant. So you can rearrange these equations for b so that you can then work with variables you still won't know at the end of the problem because you're setting in terms of r and p. So I'm getting at here, rearrange each of these problems. It's a little counterintuitive because this isn't usually how you work with equations of a line, but rearrange these equations for b so that you can set those two equations equal to one another. So here's what I mean. Take this equation out, rearrange for b. It would be subtracting x from both sides. You'll be left with b is equal to y minus x. Rearrange this equation for b. B is equal to y minus 2x. Now take these equations and substitute in. They give you the x and y substitutions for each of the equations. So for the first equation, you can just say b is equal to y is r in this case, and x is p. So there's the first equation. Your second equation, b is equal to y is 5r minus 2 times what x is 2p. Go ahead and do that multiplication here on this other equation to give you 5r minus 4p. Okay, so now you have two equations where in both cases it's b, so these equations can be set equal to one another to give you r minus p is equal to 5r minus 5, or 5r minus 4p, excuse me. So now we need to set this in terms of r divided by p. So just manipulate the equation until you get there, basically. So add p to both sides. So leave with r is equal to 5r. Negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3p. Subtract 5r from both sides. So 1 minus 5 would be negative 4. R is equal to negative 3p. Divide both sides by negative 4 here to put all the numbers on one side, all the whole numbers here. So that'll leave you with r is equal to -3 divided by -4 p. Of course, the negatives cancel out. So you have r is equal to 3/4 p. Now divide p from both sides. Will give you r divided by p. That's just dividing p from both sides is equal to 3 divided by 4. And that is what we were looking to set equal to. So what is the value of r divided by p? You've solved that right here. It is 3/4, and that is available as answer B. Problem 28, the 22 students in a health class conducted an experiment in which they each recorded their pulse rates in beats per minute before and after completing a light exercise. The dots plots are displayed below. Here is before the exercise. Here is after the exercise. Let S1 and R1 be the standard deviation and range respectively of the before, and S2 and R2 are again standard deviation and range of the data after the exercise. Which of the following is true? And taking a quick glance through, they talk about how does the standard deviation in one compare to the other, and how does the range in one compare to the other. So if you look at the number of plots they give you the first data point and the last data point on each of these, so it's pretty easy to compute range, right? These are the terms mean, median, mode, range, standard deviation you should be comfortable with going into the SAT. So range, of course, is equal to max value minus min value. So for this before exercise, it's equal to 88 minus 56. Calculator section, throw it in. The answer here is 32. Go ahead, do the same thing for the after exercise. You have 112 minus 80. That one's a little easier to do in your head. That one's just 32 as well. So the range in both of these is the same. So let's take that to our answers here and say range is the same. That's true. So A is still in contention and range is the same. That's true. These ones, B and C, are saying the range is greater in one or the other. B and C are incorrect. The range is actually the same. So now they're asking about the standard deviation. And they've made it pretty easy here. They're asking basically in A, is the standard deviation the same? Or in D, is the standard deviation not the same? So all you need to know for this problem, they could have asked you to calculate standard deviation actually. It would have been a little tedious, but they give you all the data to do it. Which one has a broader spread of data? A broader spread of data means a larger standard deviation. So this one has a pretty compact spread, a pretty compact, it has a clear peak here, whereas this one is pretty flat or all over the map a little bit. So these clearly have different standard deviations. So D is saying that standard deviations are not the same, so that is correct. Which of the following statements is true? D is correct. Standard deviation is not the same. Range is the same. Problem 29. A photocopy machine is initially loaded with 5,000 sheets of paper. The machine starts a large job and copies at a constant rate. After 20 minutes, it has used 30% of the paper. Which of the following equations models the number of sheets of paper P remaining in the machine M minutes after the machine has started printing? Okay, so looking for an equation with P as Y and M as X, basically. And taking a glance down at your possible answers, A and B are linear, C and D are some kind of exponential, not linear, basically, because these A and B take the clear y equals mx plus b form, whereas C and D have the m in an exponent. So is there anything in the problem that gives you a hint to whether this is linear or not? Well, the machine starts a large job and copies at a constant rate. That's the key word right there. Constant rate tells you the slope is linear, so it will be either A or B here. So you don't even have to consider C and D while you're thinking about the problem. Okay, so it copies at a constant rate. Can you figure out what that rate is? They give you one data point in time. They give you initially 5,000, so that's good. This is your slope or your intercept in this case. So it's 5,000 for both A and B. Now, can you figure out what that slope is? And you can't, because they give you a data point of at 20 minutes, you've used 30% of the paper. So let's calculate what paper has been used. What amount of paper has been used at that time? So you had 5,000 to start with. At 20 minutes, you've used 30%, which means that you have 70% left. So right, you have 5,000 times 0.7 because you have 70% left, and that will equal 1,500. Calculator section, plug that in. Sheets left, and that is sheets left at 20 minutes. Okay, so now let's figure out the slope of your line, or basically the rate at which this thing is going through paper. So you know you have 1,500. It's going through 1,500 sheets, right? Because that's what we just calculated in the span of 20 minutes. Which means that it's going through, you can plug this in your calculator, 1,500 divided by 20, 75 sheets per minute. And you can take a look, is that slope represented by A and B? It is represented by B. You have 5,000 initially, and it's going with a negative slope. It's using up 75 sheets of paper per M. M is in minutes, correct? Yep, 75 sheets per minute. So B is the correct answer here. Problem 30, the complete graph of the function f and a table of the values for the function g are shown above. The maximum value of f is k. What is the value of g of k? So I can tell you what they're looking for in this question is, are you going to panic at seeing all these things saying f and g and all these variables? That's really what they want. They're testing whether you're going to do that or not, because when you break it down, it actually gets pretty easy. So the maximum value of f is k. So where is f in all this information they give you above? So this is f right here, right? This line here is f. So they say the maximum value of f is k. Where does the maximum value of f happen? Well, you can pull that off the graph. It happens right here. And the maximum value, when they say maximum value, they're talking about the y here, is 3. So k is equal to 3. So now what they're asking for is, what is the value of g of k? This is why it's so important to read the last problem. You could see that and say, aha, 3, no, that's just the value of k. They're asking for g of k. So k is equal to 3, so you can rewrite over here. These are labeled x, but right, you have k, so you can say k, it's 3, which means that when k is 3, g of k is equal to 6. So g of k in this case is 6, which means it's answer choice B. Problem 31, we're into our free answer section. There are 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen in 1 molecule of water. How many atoms of hydrogen are there in 51 molecules of water? So early in the problem, they said there are 2 atoms of hydrogen. You can basically forget this information right here, and 1 atom of oxygen in 1 molecule of water. 51 molecules, 2 atoms per molecule. That's 51 times 2 is equal to 102. They let you off with a pretty simple one, at least in math terms. On this first one, the big thing is not to see chemistry and start to try to pull in information from your chem class. So the answer here is 102. Problem 32, if x is equal to 1 in the equation above, what is the value of a? Okay, let's just plug in the number they gave you here. So you have 1 minus 1/2 a is equal to 0. Subtract 1 from both sides. Negative 1/2 a is equal to negative 1. To remove that negative 1/2, multiply both sides by negative 2. We'll give you a is equal to 2. They are asking for the value of a, so 2 is the correct answer. Bubble it in. Problem 33, in the xy plane, the equations x plus 2y is equal to 10 and 3x plus 6y is equal to c represent the same line for some constant c. What is the value of c? So write these out in your own handwriting. Importantly, with the variables lined up, makes it a bit easier to do these problems and see what's going on. So that's the first equation. The second one, 3x plus 6y is equal to c. Right there, you might see what they're going for with this. If you don't, start by looking at each side of each equation, see if there's any multiplicative factors, any factors that can be pulled out. And in this case, with this second equation, you have 3x and 6y. They have a common factor of 3. So this can be rewritten as 3 times x plus 2y, because 2 times 3 is 6, right? Is equal to c. And just cross this out so it doesn't confuse you. So right now you have, in your first equation, x plus 2y, and this can be substituted in directly for this x plus 2y factor down here. Or in other words, you can substitute directly in 10 because that's all equal to 10. So at that point, you have 3 times 10 is equal to C. C is equal to 30. Go ahead and bubble that in. From 34, on April 18, 1775, Paul Revere set off on his midnight ride from Charleston to Lexington. If he had ridden straight to Lexington without stopping, he would have traveled 11 miles in 26 minutes. In such a ride, what would the average speed of a horse have been to the nearest tenth of a mile per hour? So dimensional analysis here, they're looking to give for you to get information that's in miles per minute, basically, and convert to miles per hour. So the information you're given in the problem, you have 11 miles per 26 minutes. Your dimensional analysis says you're looking to get to miles per hour, so you want hours in the denominator, basically. At the end of this, you want hours down here. Help if I can spell, H-O-U-R-S. And then to cross out minutes, you need minutes in the numerator here so that these cancel. So how many minutes in an hour? You have 60 minutes in 1 hour. Units of minutes cancel. You'll be left with miles per hour. That is what we want. Go ahead, plug into your calculator, 11 divided by 26 times 60, and you'll come up with 25.38, some more numbers. They will go back to the problem for what they're asking because you have to bubble in. They're asking for to the nearest tenth of a mile. So here's the 10th place. They're asking for the nearest. So they're not saying round up or round down. They're asking for nearest. So your next digit is 8, which means round up. So 25.4 is the answer you have to bubble in. From 35, the graph of the function f defined by, they give it here, is shown in the xy plane above. If the function g, not shown, is defined by g of x equal to negative x plus 10, what is one possible value of a such that f of a is equal to g of a? All right, so basically they have f that they give you in the graph. They have another function g that they haven't plotted, and they want to know where does g intersect f. So the big thing is that they've already plotted this quadratic, which is nice. You know, you wouldn't be able to plot that on your own, maybe on your calculator, but not on a piece of paper. It would be a little tedious. And this G is clearly just a line. So if you're able to draw G, then you can just pick off the points that they intersect right on your own. Whenever they give you a nice graph like this, if you're able to use it to avoid doing actual math, you know, otherwise what you'd have to do is set one equal to the other and then solve for x. If you can avoid doing that, do it. So let's see if we can just put this line G on our plot. So we have, this is conveniently already in our slope intercept formed, right? Y is equal to mx plus b. So b is the intercept, it's positive 10. So we know we have a point here, and we know that our slope is negative 1, which means that for every, it's going down, and for every 1 unit in x, it goes down 1 unit in y. So one tricky thing to recognize here is that here we have every tick is 1. So basically you have 1 here, you have 2 here, you know, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. I even screwed that up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Whereas on the x, you have half ticks, right? So right here you have 1/2, and then 1, and then you have, you know, 1 1/2, so 3/2, etc. So basically what I'm saying is you have to be careful because even though it looks like you're going over 2 units for 1, that is a slope of 1, right? Because you've gone down from 10 to 9 and you've gone up from 0 to 1. So that's really the place where you could get tripped up, is don't just quickly go and say, okay, these are each 1 unit grids, just go for it. You have to actually look at the x and y and make sure that you get the slope correct. So there's 1 unit, there's 2 units, and already we have our intersection. So it intersects at a value of 8.2. So what is the value of a? So they're looking for the value on the x. So a correct answer is 2. So you'd bubble in 2. Also, you can note that it looks like this continues on and it'll hit somewhere else over here. So it actually has 2 solutions, but you've already got the 1. They're only asking for the 1. A correct answer is 2. Problem 36, in triangle RST above, point W not shown lies on RT. What is the value of cosine angle RSW minus sine angle WST? So because it's not given, you can basically pick a point on this line that you'd like to be W. So let's just set it here for now so we can visualize. They're talking about cosine of angle RSW minus sine of angle WST. So one angle is here, the other angle is here. Because in the original triangle, they show that this is 90 degrees. It means that angle RSW plus angle WST is equal to 90. And that, from geometry, that's the definition of these two angles being complementary when they add up to 90. So what falls out of that tenet of geometry, and I guarantee you learn this in your geometry class one day or another, is that the cosine of complementary angles, the cosine of an angle is equal to the sine of its complementary angle. So because you know that these are complementary, it basically falls out that cosine of RSW is equal to the sine of angle WST. You can rearrange that basically to be in this form. Just subtract sine of angle WST from both sides to give you cosine angle RSW minus sine angle WST. And that, because you just subtract from both sides, is equal to 0. Now, if you remembered that complementary angle rule from geometry, that was a pretty quick one to solve. Let's say you did not remember that complementary angle rule from geometry. What's another way to sort of visualize this problem, get in your head, get the right answer here? So one thing you can do is they say point W lies on line RT, right? So you can pick any point you want. Let's say we drag W all the way over to be basically coincident with R, like almost, so that you just have a sliver on the one angle, effectively 0. So RSW is effectively 0, and that means that when this is dragged all the way over, WST is effectively 90, or very close to it. At that point, you have numbers that you can plug in to this equation here. So let's say you can take cosine of, we had RSW 0 minus sine of 90, and you can plug that in your calculator section, and you will come up with 0. And if you want to satisfy yourself, you can do the opposite. Say you drag W all the way to the other side. Now, angle, let's block all this off so we know what's together. Angle RSW is equal to 90, right? Because we dragged it all the way to this side. And angle WST is equal to 0. At that point, you have cosine of 90 minus the sine of 0. Oops, the sine of 0, sorry, that's sloppy, is equal to, again, 0. So no matter how we go about it, the correct answer is 0. You can go ahead and bubble that in. Problems 37 and 38 refer to the following information, and I rearranged it a little bit to fit on my slide. They have a table that has minutes after injection, penicillin at that time, and they plot it for you. So the information they give you: when a patient receives a penicillin injection, the kidneys begin removing penicillin from the body. The table and graph above show the penicillin concentration in a patient's blood serum at 5 minutes intervals for 20 minutes immediately following a one-time penicillin injection. Okay, what do they want to know about it? Problem 37. According to the table, how many more micrograms of penicillin are present in 10 milliliters of blood drawn from the patient 5 minutes after the injection than are present in 8 milliliters of blood drawn 10 minutes after the injection? Okay, so let's break that down part by part. First, you have to figure out how many micrograms are present at each of those times, at each of those amounts. So let's see. The first one happens at 5 minutes after injection. So 5 minutes after injection, there are 152 micrograms of penicillin per milliliter. And you have 10 milliliters of blood. So at that time, that's 1520. The milliliters cancel, so that's micrograms. And so that's at one time. At this other time, you have, I guess I should write, that's at 5 minutes. So at 10 minutes, and they're talking about 8 milli, so at 10 minutes, you have 118 micrograms per milliliter times 8 milliliters. And that is equal to, calculator, 944 milligrams. All right, so go back to your question. They're asking for how many more micrograms of penicillin are present in this 10 milliliters than are in the other one. So subtract one from the other, and they're asking you about micrograms, so you are in the right units. It's always important to check, especially in these later problems where they're trying to trick you. So just subtract 1520 minus 944. You come up with 576 micrograms. Micrograms is correct. So that is the correct answer. 576, bubble it in. Problem 38, using the same information as the previous problem, the penicillin concentration in micrograms per milliliter in the patient's bloodstream t minutes after the penicillin injection is modeled by the function p, defined by shown here. If p approximates the values in the table to within 10 micrograms per milliliter, what is the value of b rounded to the nearest tenth? Okay, so they're basically saying they give you this function that they use to create this table, basically. It's within some range. So they're saying that you have P of t, so the information in this column is P of t, where this column is t, right? So your function is P of t is equal to 200 b t over 5, and you're looking to solve for b. So you can pick any value of t that you want, right? You have information at 0, 5, 10, 15, and 20. Which of those values would be most convenient? So a lot of times picking 0 is convenient because it zeroes things out, but if you look at the way this will go, if you put 0 in here, the exponent would become 0, and b would go away. Anything to the power of 0 is 1. Now if you pick 5, 5 divided by 5, the exponent becomes 1. Anything to the power of 1 is itself. So t is equal to 5 is a pretty convenient number to put in there. So let's rewrite this for using 5 for t. So we have p of 5 is equal to 200 b 5 over 5, which, as we said, becomes 1. So that means that that's equal to just 200 b. So let's write this one more time, substituting in for this p of 5. So remember, this column is p of t. P of 5 is equal to 152. So we have 152 is equal to 200b. So b is equal to, just divide both sides by 200. 152 divided by 200. Plug that into your calculator. You'll come up with 0.76. And this is your last problem, so it's very easy to overlook this, but they say it pretty clear, to the nearest tenth. So that means you have to round it off to this place right here. They say nearest, not up or down. So because this is 6, you round up. It means that your answer is 0.8. So bubble in 0.8, and you are done with this test. Thanks for watching. Give a subscribe, give a like. If you have any questions at all, please put in the comments. I love seeing questions. It means people are engaging with the content. If there's anything else you'd like to see, please let me know that as well. Thanks for watching.